Ing, the calendar invite I never sent, 7:45 at Heron. At 6:02 a.m., I woke to a notification that treated the morning like a punchline. Your event starts soon. Drinks, Heron Hotel Bar, 7:45 p.m. It was my calendar, my name on the organizer line. Guests. One email I recognized only as a shape, first initial, last name, the kind of domain men buy when they decide to become their own business. The location pulsed blue like a dare. I hadn't made an event. I haven't been to the Heron since we went there on our second anniversary to watch a storm drag itself across the river and fail to be dramatic about it. The Heron Bar smells like cedar and confidence. The chairs are designed to insist your posture is part of the decor. My phone doesn't invent evenings. People do. Maya padded into the kitchen in my t-shirt and put her hands around her mug like heat could be kept. She kissed my cheek and made the sound she makes when she's doing 3 math problems at once and pretending it's breakfast. She's a projection designer. She teaches rooms to remember the story they're supposed to tell. You put something on my night? I asked, sliding the screen to her the way you push a pawn and pretend you haven't moved anything important. She squinted, gave a half-smile made of 3 parts politeness and 1 part something else. That's a test I sent to myself, she said. The Heron's Wi-Fi hates downloads. I used your calendar because mine is attached to the studio's network and I didn't want it to spam the team. She rinsed the mug as if the sink had jurisdiction over truth. Delete it. You invited someone, I said. Guests 1. That's the AV lead, she said smoothly. He's allergic to email. Calendars scare him less. You, I said, and let the pronoun do its work. Always use initials in events. This one used a first name. Maya rested her palms on the counter the way you do when you want to tell the truth without letting it kick your teeth in. Kitchen or the small room? She asked. Small room, I said, because a rug is better at absorbing honesty than tile. We sat under the ugly lamp you only notice when you need it. She looked at me directly, which is Maya's most violent act. 3 weeks ago I told you I was grading proofs at the studio, she said. I lied. I went to the Heron with someone who sponsors the key project. We had 1 drink and spoke fluent nonsense and kissed once to see if I was still capable of being stupid. I was. Then I left. I have been deleting that version of me ever since, like a file that refuses to go to trash. The calendar invite is a leftover of a terrible strategy. If I schedule the future, the present will behave. Do you want him? I asked, because I'm trying to be the kind of man who lets nouns sit on the table without wrapping them in bubble wrap. I want an hour that isn't graded, she said. He impersonates it well. You are it. The event still pulsed on my phone like a metronome for a song that hadn't decided to be good. I could have canceled it and made oatmeal and asked for a different day. I could have thrown the phone in the sink and called that nobility. Instead, I tapped edit, changed nothing, and added myself as an optional guest. I am petty in the ways that survive mornings. Work asked me to fake rain for a documentary about a town that hadn't had any in months. I layered soft hiss under hard taps, tuned thunder until it stopped sounding like special effects. I told my intern that sound is what happens to weather when people need narrative. At lunch, I looked up the email address in the invite. A portfolio site populated the screen with tall buildings and taller adjectives. A headshot stared out with tasteful stubble. The kind of man only cities bother to manufacture. At 7:32, I stood across the street from the Heron under the awning of a florist who names bouquets like short stories. The air had that wet electric feel April loves. The Heron's brass letters made their private argument with the dark. At exactly 7:45, Maya turned the corner, hair pinned low, wearing the black dress that could sue anyone for defamation and win. She walked like a person who had prepared to be brave and was deeply tired of it. Seconds later, he arrived with the comfort of a man whose coat knows it is invited everywhere. He reached the revolving door first and held it without touching it. Who writes a description of their own face? Suffice it to say he had one, and I disliked it. They met a host who met my gaze because hosts know everything first. They disappeared into cedar and glass. I could have left, which is a phrase for cowards that people use when they want to become something else. I crossed the street, walked into the bar, and let the room decide whether to flinch. No one does, that's their job. I took a stool far enough to look accidental. The bartender knew me by the shape of my posture or the luck of his training. "Rye?" he asked. I nodded. He poured the amount that outrages policies and calms men. They sat in a corner where the city performs best, backs to a window that knows how to flatter. He gestured with open palms. She smiled with her mouth, not her eyes. She touched the base of her glass and didn't lift it. When the host set down a candle that pretended to be intimacy, she exhaled like someone who had decided to stop auditioning. I stared at my phone because rituals save lives. In the event, my optional attendance had been moved to yes. I didn't do that. The blue dot betrayed a man at a bar pretending to be weather. I stood, carried my glass, and walked toward them in a straight line, which is at least one honest skill I have left. "Maya," I said. She turned all at once. Open shock, then a second where she found the correct version of disaster. "Noah," she said, "this is." "I know," I said. "Your sponsor, your scheduling problem. The man who learned my calendar looks better when it's lying." He stood halfway, enough to be polite, not enough to risk anything. "Maya didn't mention you'd be joining," he said, which is a gentle way of announcing that someone else's narrative annoys you. "She didn't invite me," I said, "but my phone did." I made a small mistake then and drank the rest of my rye for effect. It rewarded me with warmth I didn't earn. "I'm leaving," Maya said, to both of us and also to the candle. She stood. The man's mouth arranged itself around a word that wanted to be magnanimous and ended up being tidy. "Of course," he said. He placed a card by the candle like an apology that offered referrals. In the elevator, it was quiet until the doors shut. Then we reached for each other at the same time and collided at the point where neck meets shoulder. We didn't kiss. We pressed foreheads together like athletes transferring oxygen. "I'm not going to say I'm sorry in the lobby," she murmured. "It's too performative." "Back home," I said, "I'll bring the ugly lamp." On the way, we didn't hold hands. I matched her stride, people cosplaying as problems moved around us. At a stoplight, she said, "Do you want to scream first or listen?" "Listen," I said, "then maybe bite something." In the small room, the lamp made us look like people who deserved to have lines. She sat on the floor, legs folded, as if the world had asked for an honest portrait. I sat across from her and dragged the menu we write rules on to the space between us. "I thought I wanted to see if destruction still liked me," she said. "I have learned to my surprise that I'm more into renovation." "Do you want to be with him?" I asked. "In 3 weeks, in 3 years?" "No," she said. "I want to be the version of me who leans on the bar and laughs at nothing and becomes a beacon. That version is a liar, but she's charming. You never asked her to move in. You asked the person who set alarms and remembered what shelf the cumin is on and still wants to make out on Tuesdays." "Sometimes I liked the liar," I said. "Sometimes I married her." We didn't laugh. We put pens in our mouths the way kids do to stop words from running ahead. Then we wrote. She wrote calendar. "If I put someone on it that isn't you, I add you first." I wrote. Invitations that exclude me are not events, they're drafts. She added, truth before RSVP. I added, no words the bar has to overhear before we say them here. It was almost funny. It also was a way to make the room hard to lie in. She slid forward, nudged my knee with hers, and said, storm or quiet? Storm, I said, and the floor under us agreed with a small, heroic creak. We kissed like a translation that had been proofread. She climbed into my lap with the muscle memory of a person who does at least one thing every day with competence. I slipped my hands under her dress and found warmth that didn't need a defense. Her breath changed under my mouth. The sound that always unmakes me arrived right on time. We didn't rush the part where people lie about fireworks. We cared. We were precise. We stopped before we cheapened yes into demonstration. Then we rested our heads together and let the lamp be less ugly. In the morning, the calendar offered me an automatic prompt. Email thank you to guests. I laughed, took a screenshot, and dragged it to trash. I sent Maya a real thank you, a photo of the menu with our dumb rules, her handwriting braver than mine. She hearted it. She texted, I told him no more drinks then, don't worry, I spelled drinks like nouns. The sponsor sent one message. I don't like being the subplot, it said, which is a sentence only men write. Maya wrote back, cast yourself better, and blocked him everywhere that isn't the sky. For weeks, the heron existed only when we wanted it to. We got excellent at saying roof, when what we meant was be stupid with me for 1 hour. Sometimes the answer was no because tomorrow wanted our bones, but often it was yes, and our kitchen became a bar with better lighting. She would stand on her toes, and I would set my hands where the storm lives, and we would make out until the house admitted that people are good at heat when they prioritize. We failed sometimes. A Thursday arrived with one of those work fights that change nothing but costume. We didn't kiss it better. We sat quietly and practiced not weaponizing silence. Later, in bed, she pressed her mouth to my collarbone and said, don't start without me, and I felt my ribs forgive the day. Once, because the city is petty, I saw the sponsor at a gallery opening where drinks were verbs. He lifted a hand in a gesture that meant I am literate in exits. I didn't join his translation. I nodded the way you nod at ambulances after the siren is off because courtesy is cheap and drama costs sleep. One afternoon, I tuned the Heron Bar for a podcast tapping. My job was to make it sound like generosity instead of money. I took a decibel off the glass and gave it to the air. In the corner, the host practiced saying, we like a door being held and not like a performance. I texted Maya a picture of the stool we sat at when we met, and she sent back the lemon emoji we use when we need to be scolded out of cleverness. We kept the event template in our calendar. We renamed it us, guests, both of us. Location, heron or kitchen or small room or any place we decide is a better bar. Time, 7:45 or whenever we can make the lamp forgive us. It pings on Thursdays sometimes. It is ridiculous. It works. On the night Spring decided to be kind, we dressed up for no invitation. She wore the black dress. I wore the jacket that makes me stand up straighter. We didn't go anywhere. We made ice, put rye in 2 glasses, set them on the counter like a miracle we chose. She said, storm, and I said, always when it's safe, and neither of us needed the city to sign off. Sometimes I wake at 6:02 out of habit, expecting the phone to sell me a night that isn't mine. It doesn't. The calendar shows us, polite and demanding. I nudge Maya with my knee and she makes that small human sound that should be a key. We schedule the day around a kiss we intend to keep. The heron still smells like cedar whenever we let it. The river still thinks it's in our marriage. Maybe it is. We choose when to open the window. We decide what the forecast means. The other morning I found the original invite again in the trash I never empty. I dragged it to delete. The phone asked if I was sure. I thought about how few things deserve that question. I tapped yes, set the device face down, and found my wife standing in the small room with her hair pinned low and her mouth lifting at the corner like the day had made a promise she planned to collect. She said, 7:45. I said, I RSVP yes. And it turned out the present behaves just fine when you schedule it with both thumbs and then show up.